Welcome to the Music is My Life podcast from Berklee Online. I'm your host, Pat Healy, and our guest on this episode is Molly Tuttle, who is our first guest to have released an album that she made while quarantining during the coronavirus pandemic. Yeah, her latest album is But I'd Rather Be With You, and it came out late last month on Compass Records. Now, she's known for her bluegrassy roots style, and this album is a collection of songs from artists that you normally wouldn't associate with that style of music, let alone with each other, really. Rancid, Cat Stevens, Yeah Yeah Yeahs, The Grateful Dead. But really, who cares about genre? These are songs that help Molly get through some tough times in her life, designed to get listeners through tough times in their lives, like now. Molly went to Berklee College of Music, where she started a roots supergroup of sorts called Goodbye Girls. Before that, she grew up listening to punk rock with her friends, and she was born into a musical family where the favorite style was bluegrass, and her preference was for scarier songs in that genre. Let's let her tell you all about it.
I remember my dad just playing songs for me as a really little kid. He would play bluegrass songs and folk songs. My favorite was this one Matterhorn about people climbing the Matterhorn and they all died. I remember requesting that a lot as a little kid. I just wanted to hear that song. I think the story was it was like a little bit scary and like exciting. And yeah, so I remember just hearing my dad playing guitar and singing. And then he also played fiddle. So I would sometimes, when I was really young, like 3 or 4, I think my mom would take me he would be like playing a square dance or something and we'd go. So I'd see him playing fiddle. And then I really wanted to play fiddle. But at that age, like 3 or 4, I didn't really have the attention span for it. So I didn't stick with it. And then when I was 8, I asked for a guitar and my dad brought me home this little baby Taylor guitar that's like a small a guitar that's good for like kids, basically.
And your siblings, are they older, younger? What's the age range?
I have 2 younger brothers. We're fairly close in age. I think we're like each 2 years apart.
And they're part of the band too, right?
Yeah, they were in the band. So the band we had when I was a teenager was my 2 younger brothers, my dad, me, and then our friend AJ, who was like, everyone thought she was in our family, but she was just our friend that we met at bluegrass festivals. But she's a great singer. So her and I really liked to sing harmony together. And yeah, that was our band.
And it's interesting, listening to the new album, it's obvious that your musical interests were not limited to bluegrass.
Mm-hmm.
Or is this collection of songs what you were listening to as a kid growing up? Or was there something else that attracted your attention in addition to bluegrass?
Some of them, like I always had other stuff I was listening to. I think in middle school, like when I was 12 and 13, that's when I started to explore music on my own because I grew up just hearing bluegrass around the house and I really liked it. But then when I was in middle school, my friends were listening to other stuff. And I remember like going to Tower Records and buying my first CD, which was a Beck CD because my older cousin was like, you should listen to Beck. And I listened.
Which one?
It was Wero.
Oh, yeah.
So I listened to that a billion times. And then I had like my music teacher in middle school was like, you can take whichever CDs of mine that you want. And he had like Rage Against the Machine, Sublime, Rancid, kind of like 90s bands, I guess. And so I listened to those a lot too. It was kind of like whichever CDs I could get my hands on. And then I had an iPod Shuffle, but it was still like burning CDs onto it. But yeah, so like one of those songs, Olympia Washington, ended up on the record that I listened to and would jam with my friends on in middle school. And then, the rest are just kind of songs I picked up over the years like that, just stuff I was listening to and songs that stuck with me through the years and that I went back to and had a lot of fun playing on my own.
Yeah, so when you were in middle school and you were playing Rancid covers, were you doing the straightforward, like with distortion pedals and everything? I imagine you weren't doing a bluegrass feel to it that point.
It was pretty simple. Like, I don't think I knew how to use pedals or anything. We just had there was a Strat at my middle school in the band room that I would use. And then my friends would plug in the electric basses. But yeah, we would just go straight into amps and kind of jam and set up mics and stuff. But it was a fun, we were basically getting ready for each year. There was a rock concert at school. So it'd be getting songs ready for that. I think one year we did Fall Back Down by Rancid. That was our big one we worked on a lot. We also did some Sublime songs, some Blink-182. We played a lot of Green Day songs. It was just kind of playing for fun, basically, for this school concert at the end of the year.
And during that time, were you involved in the family stuff as well? And that's more on a professional level too.
Yeah, so that was like actual gigs. I was playing around the same time I was starting to play gigs with my family, and it wasn't really the family band at first. It was like other students that my dad had that were the same age as me, and we kind of would like form a little band. Sometimes my dad would play with us, sometimes we would play on our own. But it was nice to have other kids my age who liked bluegrass, because there was no one at my school. Actually, that's not true. There was a little bluegrass band at my school too, with some kids who were a few years older than me, but no one like in my grade was into bluegrass. So it was fun that my dad had students around the same age as me. Yeah.
Wait, what year was that then? I'm trying to figure it out.
That would have been like 2006.
Right, because there was like the whole "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" resurgence of bluegrass in like the early 2000s or late 90s.
Yeah, I guess it would have been like, that would have still been carrying on a little bit. And I like, people were aware of bluegrass. I think some people at my school kind of like listened to it a little bit, or liked "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou." And then there was like a little bluegrass band, and we'd play at the farmer's market just with like, I remember I was in 6th grade and they were all in 8th grade, but I got to play with them, which was fun. We were called the Lil Billies.
Oh, that's pretty good.
The teacher chose that name for us.
That is amazing.
Out of sheer cuteness.
That is great. Did you like really play it up and wear overalls and straw hats, or?
No, I was so shy. I would just show up, and I was like terrified to talk to the 8th graders. I would just like play guitar.
So during this time when you're doing both of these things, having fun, knocking around with your friends, playing punk rock covers, and then doing stuff with the family, playing actual gigs, doing bluegrass songs, what was the music that was in your head and in your heart at this point, just in the day-to-day walking around? Was it a mix of all these things and more, or was it one more than the other?
Yeah, it was a pretty eclectic mix, because around that time I was obsessed with Hazel Dickens. And I was getting into like old time music a little bit, but Hazel Dickens was like my main bluegrass obsession. So I'd listen to her nonstop. And then I'd also listen to like other stuff that I listened to with my friends. I remember walking around my neighborhood and like listening to Operation Ivy, but then like also turning on Hazel Dickens. Or like Lori Lewis was another one of my heroes, because she's a Bay Area bluegrass singer that I got to see live a lot. And then there'd be like bluegrass bands coming through the Bay Area. There was like one bluegrass series in Redwood City, California. I think it was Redwood City or Mountain View. And so every month there would be another bluegrass show. So I'd always go to those. So it was kind of just like, I just kind of like picked and chose like the bands that I really liked, and was never sticking to one genre or another, I guess.
Right. So did you have your punk rock friends and your bluegrass friends or anything like that?
It did feel kind of separate in a way. Like my friends at school, I listened to one kind of music with, and then on the weekends I'd like play at the pizza parlor with my bluegrass friends, or like go to a bluegrass festival. Yeah, there wasn't too much overlap.
Right. Well, speaking of overlap, did you ever get to see Hazel Dickens play live?
Yeah, in San Francisco at the Hardly Strictly Bluegrass. Warren Hellman, who put that festival on, was a huge Hazel Dickens fan, so we always flew her out for it, and we'd like get there really early to see her set. But yeah, it was really magical to see her. And then one year we got backstage passes from a friend, so I got to meet her for a second. That was really cool.
And at the same time, now I'm wondering, with this new album and being in the industry for a certain amount of years, I'm guessing you've met some of your punk rock idols as well.
Not yet exactly, although Lars from Rancid messaged me on Instagram when he heard my cover, and he said he really liked it. And that made me so happy, because the first line of the song is "Hanging Out with Lars."
Right.
On 6th Street. I was like, oh my God, I'm actually talking to the Lars from the song. So next time, I think he's might be still in the Bay Area, so I'm going to message him and try to meet him someday.
You know, when you sometimes listen to something for the very first time, you're like, all right, I'm just putting it on the background and we'll just see what jumps out at me. Yeah. And that was the line that was like, wait, I know this song. This is
totally
what?
I think that song especially kind of pops out on the album. It sound like the sound quality of it is different than the other songs.
So you're doing both these things, and then comes Berklee College of Music, or you're doing the band with your family as well, the Tuttles.
Yeah. So then, Yeah, when I was in high school, that band the family band with AJ, kind of took over. I stopped like playing with bands at school. I wasn't really doing any music at school except for the occasional, like there would be like a music day and they'd ask me to play a song or something. But I didn't have any like bands with my friends. So I was doing gigs with my family, and then sometimes I'd do like a solo open mic, and that's how I started playing my own original songs. I would play some originals with my family, but I was also writing songs and like starting to play a little bit solo before I left for Berklee. And then at Berklee is when I really started doing my own band more.
Right. And then the Hazel Dickens Memorial Scholarship too, that must have been kismet.
Yeah, that was really magical. I loved getting that. That was really cool.
So tell me about when you got to Berklee. Did you find your niche right away, or did it take a little bit of time? I know that kids can get lost in the mix there with so many different interests.
Yeah, I was really lucky with that. Like, I went to this music camp, and I didn't really go to music camps as a kid so much, but I did go to one the summer before going to Berklee, and I feel like I met almost everyone at Berklee in the Roots and Bluegrass program the summer before. And so I told them all I was going to go to Berklee most likely. So when I got there, I already had gigs lined up with students there, and like I was already in a lot of the classes that I wanted to be in with the teacher. Like Bruce Molsky was teaching an old time ensemble that I got to be in. So I felt like meeting all those people the summer before really helped. And then when I got there, it was pretty immediate, like playing with other students, and at least in the Roots music department. But then it took a little while to really to hit my stride with the classes I wanted to take, and like finding the guitar department, especially since it was totally separate from the string department where all the bluegrass people were. It was harder to hit my stride in that area, I guess.
Did you go in with a major?
No, I think I declared my major after a couple semesters, and I just chose guitar performance so that I could take more lessons and stuff. But yeah, the guitar department, I remember when I got there, it was the semester that John McGann passed away, and I had been kind of planning to take lessons with him because he was such a great bluegrass guitar player who also knew a lot about jazz and music theory. But he passed away right when I got to school. So then they didn't really have any bluegrass or roots music guitar teachers. So I had to just explore and try with different teachers. And I asked around a lot for recommendations, and eventually ended up studying with this guy, Dave Tronzo, who was he does like free improvisation. He's a really amazing slide electric player. And he helped me a lot just with general music concepts, I guess.
Yeah, that's interesting too, because your style is so rooted, no pun intended, in the Roots music, and thinking about the fact that you do have all this knowledge of other ways to play and your punk background as well. You have such a knack for expressing your songs in your own way, but I guess it must be tempting to use some of the knowledge you have from other genres inside what you do. And you kind of do with this new album, but I guess if you could speak to that for the guitar, from a guitar perspective.
Yeah, I think like just learning from other instruments and other genres. On guitar, how I do that is I just listen to a song from another genre and try to learn the part on guitar. Like I did that for a couple songs on the record, She's a Rainbow. I just learned the piano part. And I think it's not really something I have to try to incorporate other styles. I feel like no matter what I play, it ends up sounding kind of bluegrassy and kind of just my own style, I guess. It's like I can listen to a bunch of different styles and then play it, and it still kind of sounds like whatever else I'm playing, for better or worse. But yeah, there were some songs on the new album where I definitely stretched out a little bit and played in a little more unconventional ways. There's some where I'm not playing with a pick and just kind of like plucking the strings. And yeah, just a few where I learned from a piano part or another instrument.
So you get to school, how long after before you form Goodbye Girls?
Like a year or two. So that band formed because this booking agent in Sweden reached out to Leanna, who's the fiddle player in the band, and she is Swedish. She like came over to study American roots music at Berklee, and he reached out to her and he was like, hey, he had known her from like her being a great Swedish fiddle player, and he was like, why don't you put a band together at Berklee, and I'll bring you all over to Sweden for a tour this summer. And I had never toured abroad or anything. I was really excited. So she asked Allison, the banjo player, and then Allison was like, hey, I know a good guitar player we could get in the band. So they asked me, and then I was roommates with Brittany, the bass player, and I was like, why don't we get Brittany to fill out the band? So that just happened naturally. And then we went over to Sweden and did that tour, and we were like, this feels really special. And none of us had ever felt that exact way playing music in a band before. We really became great friends and just had so much fun playing together. So then we ended up doing more tours. And once we had videos, people were approaching us a lot about doing tours and shows and stuff. So that became something that it was never like a full-time thing, but it went on for a few years and it was really fun.
Yeah, I was wondering if that was ever something you all talked about as far as, hey, when we're done with school, let's maybe give this a go.
Yeah, we did talk about it. It was always kind of tricky because I was trying to do my own solo thing. And I felt like I always had to be like, hey, I want to do this thing and this is where my focus is. I love playing with the band, but it can't like distract me too much from this other thing that I'm doing. And I don't want to do too much with the band because people will start wanting, like, I just didn't want it to kind of take off more than my own solo thing because I knew that's what I wanted to focus on.
You were Rod Stewart in the Faces, basically.
And we all had different projects going. We were all really busy. So it just kind of naturally never became a full-time thing. But I think that was nice because then whenever we did tour together, it was really special.
So then you moved to Nashville. Tell me about what happens when you get there.
So I moved to Nashville. I stayed in Boston for a little while after I graduated. Then I moved here. And then I had a bunch of songs. So I'd been writing songs since I was a teenager, but I never recorded them. So I had a handful that I really wanted to record an album with. So then I started reaching out to people trying to find a producer. And I ended up talking to Kai Welch, who ended up producing my EP Rise. So we did that album together right after I moved to Nashville. We just recorded it in this guy, Eric Jaskowiak's garage studio. And then after I did that, I was kind of touring with my own band, just trying to do as many festivals and shows that I could with my band. And it was like a total bluegrass band. And then once I put that record out, my EP, that's when stuff started to speed up a little bit and I got a lot more gigs and I signed with Compass Records and then I won some Bluegrass IBMA awards. And then that's kind of when things started taking off a little bit more and I got to play lots of festivals and tour most of the year and stuff with my band.
So you'd said before when talking about the Goodbye Girls that you always kind of knew that the solo career was what you wanted. How did you know? I mean, was it because you had been with the family band so long and played in bands? And I guess just at what point do you get that singular vision?
Yeah, it was just a gut feeling. Like when I was doing other stuff, it just always, there was this nagging feeling that it was like taking away from what I really wanted to do. Yeah, I think maybe a lot of my heroes are solo artists and songwriters. So the other thing is with what I do, like writing songs, singing, and playing guitar, it felt like having a solo band is really where I could express fully who I was as a musician. And the Goodbye Girls, it was such a fun side project to have because I didn't have to worry about carrying the whole band and I was playing mostly rhythm guitar. I'd take a lead here or there and I'd sing maybe like half the songs in a set or something, but it wasn't all about me, which was kind of a nice relief. And it was fun to just focus on other things musically, but I just knew that it wouldn't be fully satisfying and wouldn't help me grow as much as a musician as pushing myself to do a solo project.
How often with a solo band do you change up the members?
With my last record, When You're Ready, I decided to just start with new people because I'd had a bluegrass acoustic band for so long. The record that I made, When You're Ready, that came out last year was more like there was electric guitar and electric bass and drums. So then I just decided like I want to start with a totally new band. And then I found Sam Howard and Nick Falk, who have played with me for the last year and a half, I guess. And then kind of like a few different fourth and fifth band members here and there. Christian Settlemeyer's played a lot of violin with me, and Anthony DaCosta has played electric guitar with me sometimes. I love my band members, and I want to play with them for as long as I can. They're just awesome.
With the album titles, When You're Ready, But I'd Rather Be With You, who is the you in that? And is it the same you in each title?
I think like with When You're Ready, I was kind of thinking about myself because I was like leading up to that album for so long, and it just felt like I was ready to make a statement of who I was, but it had kind of been mulling for a long time. Like I'd always wanted to do a solo album. And then But I'd Rather Be With You, this one I feel like I chose that title because to me it's thinking about I want to be with my audience, I want to be with my friends, I want to be with my family in California, but we're all so isolated right now. We're going to get through it and get to be together again, but it's just kind of this feeling of right now that, yeah, I'm doing this album alone in my house, learning how to record myself, but I'd rather be with you all playing music together and doing what I love. And it sounds depressing, but it's kind of like just nodding to the situation.
Right.
Like, yep. This
well, I mean, it sounds depressing, but it doesn't sound depressing. Like the record, I couldn't really tell that all these people weren't in the same room together. Did you meet everybody? Have you met everybody who played on the record in person?
No, I've met
really
no one who played on. I've met the three vocalists, Z, Berg, Tony's daughter, Ketch is a friend of mine, and Taylor Goldsmith is a friend of mine, but I've met no one else who played on.
That's funny. Yeah, I wonder did you ever like contact them to hear what their experience was like working on it, or?
We were gonna set up a Zoom call and that still hasn't happened, so I'll definitely reach out to them before it comes out, but I've messaged with a few of them, but yeah, I haven't really talked to them so much, which is strange.
That is strange, just because you're basically getting these people to share kind of like a very personal thing.
Yeah, it's really bizarre.
Wow. But I guess it's a little bit different like when you're playing with session musicians, because you are in the same room and you do meet them and you can say, no, do it like this. And
totally. This was all going through Tony, so he knew all of them, and then,
So you had mentioned that you were learning and teaching yourself how to record. That was not something you learned at Berklee?
No, I never took recording classes at Berklee. They have a really great engineering program. I was only there for 2.5 years, so I felt like there were so many other classes I would have wanted to take if I'd stayed for 4 years. But yeah, I just kind of was focusing on guitar and songwriting when I was there. And so I'd never used Pro Tools before. I'd always just recorded stuff on GarageBand. It was a bit of a learning curve, but I wasn't doing anything like crazy with plugins or anything really intricate with my parts. I was just recording, setting up a click track, setting up the mics, recording a few takes. Sometimes I'd be like multi-tracking my guitar and vocals and then sending them off to the producer and engineer.
Walk me through the process of coming up with this project and then figuring out who was going to be involved and how to get them to sound so full for such a, postal service type kind of collaboration.
So I met Tony Berg in January and we were like, let's make a record together. I was thinking of an originals record, but then I went out and stayed with him in LA for a little bit and we kind of talked about it some more. And then I actually flew back to Nashville from his house in LA, and that's when quarantine started. Like, I was with him at the studio. I was just kind of like playing around on some guitars, and then I got a call that all my gigs were canceled, which I was kind of expecting. But then the next day I flew back to Nashville and started quarantine, and we just put everything on hold. And then after a few weeks, he reached out and was like, hey, why don't we just do a record in quarantine? And I had been struggling to write songs because I just felt like there was so much going on. It was really hard for me to express how I was feeling. So we went back through a bunch of these songs that I've just loved throughout my life, and tried to figure out ones that might be a little more unexpected for my audience, kind of show a different side of who I was, but also show a different side of the songs, like having my voice on them, I guess.
And what was the setup in your house? What room were you in, and how were the neighbors reacting?
I live in a small house in East Nashville, and I have like my bedroom and then an extra room. So I was just in my extra room, which is really tiny. I mainly did the whole thing using 3 mics, really simple mics, just SM57, SM7B, and the Audio-Technica 4033, I think. So I just set up the mics. I borrowed a preamp from my friend Ryan, and then downloaded Pro Tools. And each day I would just sit in the room and usually record guitar first, and then do a few takes of that, send it to them. They would comp it and pick the best take, and then I would either multi-track another guitar part on top of that to make it sound fuller, and like you hear 2 guitars at the same time on some of the songs, and then do the vocals. So it was kind of a lonely process, but it was also really freeing to just get to do whatever I want and not worry about having only a set amount of studio time or having a bunch of producers and musicians in the control room listening to every note I play. And it was kind of nice just to do it on my own timeline.
So you'd do the stuff, then you'd send it off to Tony, but did you ever get anything back and then add more?
Yeah, sometimes so I'd send him like guitar and vocal and he'd be like, hey, it was usually just really simple stuff like, hey, sing another vocal part on this. Or like the song Mirrored Heart, I sent him the guitar and vocal and he was like, why don't we just keep this only you and you just sing all the harmony parts? So we sent that back and he was like, just have fun with it, make up your own parts. So I just kind of sang whatever I heard. That one ended up being like 3 or 4 vocals of mine at the same time. I might have multi-tracked some of them and then just one guitar. So it was stuff like that. Or sometimes I'd play something on a guitar and he'd be like, hey, redo this part and send it back, or like play it on a different guitar and send it back. There was some stuff that I did that he was just like, this isn't working.
Yeah, were there any things left on the cutting room floor as far as versions of songs?
Let's see. There was another song by Lana Del Rey that I was covering at the beginning of the year, and I recorded that one. We ended up not doing that.
Which one was that?
It's called The Greatest. There's a version on YouTube a while ago, and that one I just thought I really liked it. It came out last year. But we ended up not doing that because it didn't feel like it fit with the other songs. There were a bunch of songs that I sent him that just didn't work out for whatever reason. And then as far as like stuff on these songs, it was just, there were some parts that weren't fully fleshed out that I would record and send him, and he'd be like, hey, you need to like work on this guitar part a little more, like, or sing this vocal in a different way. One thing he had me do is like, I would sing a vocal and send it to him and he'd be like, you're thinking about this too hard, like turn off all the lights and drink a glass of wine and then redo it and send it back to me.
And did it help?
Yeah, it actually helped a lot. That was something I'm going to remember for the future.
Do you think this will change the way you do recording? Like, will you do this approach of starting your initial tracks next time?
Maybe. I think it's cool. I think maybe I would want like kind of a mixed approach. Like maybe some I would do like this and some I would do in a studio. But it's definitely made me realize that having like 7 days in a studio and trying to get a whole album feels like a lot to me now. Like I kind of think I want to just do it in like take longer and really go back through each part of mine and make it how I like it before trying to just get a whole album out in a week or whatever.
Right. Yeah. So what's going on with the next project?
I'm just back in the writing mode for that. Yeah, I don't really know when I'll be going into the studio or anything. I guess it's kind of all up in the air anyway. But yeah, just been writing a bunch of songs.
Did doing all these covers help you with your own writing?
I think so. It made me think about what I really like in my favorite songs. And yeah, just I love all the lyrics in the songs that I chose. So it made me think about why I like the songs that I like, I guess.
As far as the songs you did choose for this record, do you see a through line between all the groups that you covered?
Nothing except that they all remind me of different times in my life and different like exact moments in time when I was listening to them or playing them, or it feels like just kind of a timeline of my evolution in the music I've listened to and the songs that have meant a lot to me.
Yeah, tell me about like your connection to Standing on the Moon. It's a later Grateful Dead song, and you don't often hear people cover later era songs from them.
Yeah, that was one I actually hadn't heard until a few years ago. I was trying to figure out a song to do for this Jerry Garcia tribute show. And I just heard that song and I was like, wow, I think this is like my favorite song. It just felt like this is the song I've been wanting to hear for my whole life because it made me feel really nostalgic for where I grew up in California, and it just the lyrics rang so true to me. And I ended up not ever playing it for that show. I played a different one that was more like one of Jerry's more bluegrassy songs, because that's what I grew up listening to, like the Olden and the Way stuff. The like more acoustic stuff. But Standing on the Moon always stuck with me. So then I learned it and played it at my record release show in San Francisco a year ago. And that was like a really special show for me, just to go back to the Bay Area and like see a bunch of friends. And my brother and his band opened for me and they sat in with me on that one. So it really felt like a homecoming show. And that was kind of the special moment of playing that song that I remember. Yeah, it just became one of my favorite songs.
Tell me about your connection with Zero.
Yeah, Zero is one that I really liked in high school. I think it came out when I was in high school. And I remember one of my friends was really, really obsessed with the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, and I really liked them too, but she was like a super fan, and so we listened to all their music together, and that song came out, and I just thought it was so awesome, and it made me feel so powerful listening to it as a teenager, and I remember just like singing along with it. And so then when I was like trying to figure out covers to do in my set after my last record came out, I was like, maybe I'll try learning that song. It was like a little nostalgic for me, and I just liked the vibe of it. And then the guitar part grabbed me because it's like this fast eighth note like rhythm part that I thought was really fun to play. So yeah, that one became a staple of my live show this last year. And that's the one song on the record that I have played live a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like a good fit for the album.
Now, it's interesting that a lot of the people that I've talked to for this podcast, the current thing that they're promoting is something that they did before quarantine. But you're the first person that I've talked to who's done something during quarantine. And it must be strange to not know how you're going to promote it, like, because there's no touring cycle right now. So what are your thoughts on that?
I was never expecting to like tour this album, especially since it's covers. I kind of just want to like pay tribute to these songs that I love, and it's okay with me if I'm not like going out and playing a million shows promoting it, because I am doing like live streams and putting out videos and doing stuff online to kind of show like my own voice with these songs. So I think since this record was made in quarantine and it's covers, and it feels a little bit like I kind of made it for this moment as a way to connect with my fans and be like, hey, here's these songs that have really helped me through times in my life and really brought me a lot of joy. I hope that you're all doing okay, and I hope that you enjoy them too, and maybe you'll feel more of a connection with me, seeing this other side of me, and maybe we can all stay connected through this time.
Staying connected through this time is a good idea. Don't you think, listeners? Thank you, Molly Tuttle, for that. And hey, because you listen to this podcast, you can stay connected with your progress in learning music for a discount. Head over to musicismylifepod.com right now and redeem the special offer to take a 12-week Berklee Online course for $100 off the regular price. Classes begin today on September 28th, but there is still time to register, so do not delay. This episode was edited by Talia Smith, mastered by Jose David Vindis-Mora, all visual assets coordinated by Mike DeBenedictis, social media by Brooke Larson, web assistance courtesy of Mark Thomas, Steve Zimmerman, and Joe McDonough. I wrote and recorded the Music Is My Life theme song, but the expert remixing comes courtesy of Lily Dickinson. Special thanks to Gabriel Reifer Cohen, Ashley Pointer, Big Hassle's Invincible Ken Weinstein, Michael Eisel, and thanks to you for listening. Please join us on Monday, October 12th, when our special guest will be Joe Wong. Stay safe, everybody. We'll talk soon.